Officer of Housing. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome each of you to the discussion on the repositioning of our public housing portfolio, specifically at our Latimer site, using the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Cindy Herrera, who is Columbia Housing's Senior VP of Development, to provide you all with an update on our redevelopment efforts. Cindy?
You're on mute, Cindy.
Cindy, you're muted.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to ask Ms. McRoberts first to go over a little bit of housekeeping about how we're going to do the meeting this afternoon, and then we'll get started.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. We are going to ask that everyone stay on mute during the call. We will take questions after the presentation, and you can ask those in the chat box. You can access the chat box in the toolbar at the bottom of your screen, the little chat bubble that says chat, and you can put those questions in there and we'll make sure that they get answered after Ms. Herrera finishes the presentation. Again, thank you. We will have these up on our YouTube channel probably tomorrow, definitely within the next 24 hours. We have set up a web page on our website under housing that is called RAD Resources. That is a page where all of the videos, the questions and answers, and any other information regarding the RAD conversion will live. So that's a resource going forward that you are more than welcome to take advantage of. If neighbors that are not here with us tonight want to catch that, they can catch up by going to that page. But again, put your questions in the chat and we will get to those after the presentation. Thank you, Ms. Herrera.
Great, thank you. Again, everyone, thank you for being with us again today. Just a recap from what we talked about at our last meeting a couple of weeks ago, Latimer Manor is going to be redeveloped under HUD's Rental Assistance Demonstration Program. And what exactly is RAD? It is a demonstration program that came into effect in 2012. It's a program that HUD created. What it actually does is it removes the properties from the public housing program and it converts them to a Section 8 platform using project-based vouchers. The reason that HUD developed the RAD program was to be able to find a way in which housing authorities can address capital needs, or basically the repair of the properties. It allows us to be able to go out and access private funds. We had talked last time about the fact that Congress has not historically appropriated sufficient funds to take care of all the repairs that are needed. And today, across the country, all of the public housing throughout the country needs about $60 billion of repairs. So what RAD will do is it'll allow us to be able to go out and secure money from lenders and investors to be able to either rehabilitate the property or to be able to build new housing on the site of where the existing housing is. Let's talk a little bit. We told you we'd come back today and talk with you a little bit about the plans for Latimer Manor. I want to basically clarify that these are preliminary plans. As we work through the process, there will be changes. We will be soliciting feedback from residents, from neighborhood, from community stakeholders. So there will be an ongoing communication and communication process as we go through this. Right now at Latimer Manor, we have determined that all of the current units do need to be demolished. The cost to repair them far exceeds the percentage for us to be able to do the repairs. So we will anticipate that Latimer Manor will be redeveloped through new construction. We're going to do this in two different components. One, the first component is called a transfer of assistance, a RAD transfer of assistance, or we refer to it as a TOA. About half the units from Latimer Manor, 100 units, will go through the RAD transfer of assistance. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And then on the Latimer Manor site, we're going to develop approximately 220 units. Could be a few more, could be a few less, but that's the estimated number at this time based on preliminary designs. It will be a mixed income community. 100 of those 220 units will be RAD units. So they will be half of the current Latimer units will stay back on the site. The unit mix that we're anticipating is that there will be a senior building, which will be probably about 60 units of housing for senior citizens. We anticipate that that would be in a single 3-story building. Then we anticipate that there would be about 120 townhomes for families that would be built back on the site. And the picture you see down in the right-hand corner is kind of a sample. That building actually looks like a big house, but it's multiple townhomes, each with their own separate entrance into the building. And then in addition to that, at Latimer Manor, we're going to be developing approximately 40 home ownership units. These will be single-family homes that we will work with residents to be able to qualify for home ownership. And these will be homes that will be sold to individual residents or people who would otherwise be eligible for them. Let me talk a little bit more about the transfer of assistance. The transfer of assistance is when we take units from an existing public housing property and we move that subsidy to another location. So in the case of Latimer, we have 2 new projects that we're building that are located close to the Columbia Mall. One of them is called Willowbrook and one of them is called Hunt Club. Both of these will be a total of 140 units, but we're going to move about 50 units of the subsidy from Latimer Manor to these particular projects. And this is actually a conceptual plan of what these projects will look like. Both of these projects are far along and they're expected to close by June of next year and start construction. And so these will not be built at the time you move, but they will be units that the residents at Latimer Manor will have a priority to be able to go to the units at these properties. So these will be part of your units that you will be able to select from as units that provide you with a guarantee right to a new RAD unit. So this is called a transfer of assistance. And again, this is when you move some of the units to another location. And the reason we're going to do that is so that the communities will have more of a mixed income approach instead of being 100% the same. So that's the reason for doing the transfer of assistance. What does this really mean to you? So let me go through this. We talked a little bit last time about what RAD means for you, but I'm going to talk specifically about the plans for Latimer. You will be relocated to allow for the redevelopment. Obviously, since we're going to tear down all the units and build new units, everybody's going to have to move. Your relocation options that you will have initially will be temporary relocation with a voucher. That means that you're going to take your voucher, live somewhere else until a unit gets built, and then you'll be eligible to go back to that unit. You might be able to move to another public housing unit or another subsidized unit that we have somewhere else. That'll be another one of your options. Or you will be able to elect voluntary permanent relocation with a voucher as well. What that means is that if you decide that you don't want to move into any of the new properties where the assistance from Latimer is going to be located, and you just take your voucher and you say, I'm just going to take my voucher and move permanently someplace else. You'll have that as an option as well. But one of the things we want to stress is under the RAD rules, you all have a guaranteed right to return. So that means you all have a guaranteed right to one of the new RAD units in one of the properties where the units will be located. That guaranteed right basically means that you can come back to the property with no rescreening. You will not have to be rescreened. You will be determined automatically eligible. So there's no criteria if you want to come back to one of the newly developed units, to one of those RAD units, then you will automatically be eligible. In most cases, everybody's rent will remain the same. And we talked about this last time. The voucher program calculates the tenant rent the same as the public housing program does. It's based on 30% of your income. The only difference is that if you are currently on a public housing ceiling rent, you could possibly see a rent increase because the voucher program does not have a ceiling rent. If you were to have a rent increase that was more than 10% or more than $25, that rent increase would be phased in over a 3-year period. So you would not have to pay the increase all at one time. So that's pretty much what this whole thing means for you specifically as the residents. And so the next steps, again, we want to reiterate, do not move. We do not need anybody to move. We do not want anybody to move. We want to make sure that you do not move. The RAD process takes time. We anticipate that this process could be anywhere from 2 to 3 years to be completed. We anticipate that it will begin probably in approximately a year. So about a year from now, maybe when we come to you and begin to offer you options for your temporary relocation. But throughout this process, we will have regular meetings to keep you informed of what's going on with Latimer Manor, to share with you some of the conceptual plans as they continue to be developed by our development partner, and to solicit your feedback and to answer any questions that you may have. So this process will be ongoing. And what we've shared with you today is the preliminary conceptual plans for the redevelopment of Latimer Manor, but this will be refined and more detail will be provided as we move forward even farther in the process. So I'm going to end my presentation and then we're going to take questions from anybody. I know some of you are not on a computer, so you didn't see the slide. So as Ms. McRoberts said, this will all be posted on our website and you'll be able to go look at it at any time. So I'll open it up for questions now, Lee, if you want to try to field any questions that come in.
There we go. Thank you, Ms. Herrera. I appreciate all that. That was really good information for everybody. Got a couple questions about rent. You mentioned, you used a phrase ceiling rent. Is that the same thing as flat rent?
Yes, it is. A flat rent and a ceiling rent is the same thing. So if you're a public housing tenant that's currently paying a flat rent, you are paying, more than likely, you're paying less than 30% of your income. And so at the time that the property converts, you would have to pay 30% of your income eventually because the voucher program does not have a flat rent. But as I mentioned, if your rent does go up more than 10% or more than $25, that rent increase would be phased in over a 3-year period.
Now, another question kind of regarding rent. You mentioned in passing that the rent won't change. If I go back to the property though, will I still be paying the same rent? If I'm in a 3-bedroom at the old site, will my rent be the same in a 3-bedroom at the new site when those units are finished?
Generally, your rent will be the same, except if you are on the flat rent. If you're on the flat rent, whether you take a voucher and move elsewhere or whether you come back to the property under the project-based vouchers, just remember that the voucher program does not have a flat rent. So any place you live with a voucher, the flat rent would not apply.
Ms. Herrera, I got somebody asking, they're one of the larger units at Latimer. Latimer is one of the last properties where we have 4 and 5 bedroom units, and I've got somebody who with a family in one of those larger units. Will we have comparable units that large families will be able to move back into on the new site?
We will have units. We are required to make sure that we have a unit that facilitates every family. That's a RAD requirement. So we are looking right now at the demographic statistics. We've pulled the demographics for all the families, and we're actually looking at the size of the unit that a family needs. Some families actually are in 4 and 5 bedrooms and they need 4 and 5 bedrooms, but we have other families that are actually only qualify for a 3-bedroom, but they might be living in a 4. And so one of the things that RAD requires is when the units are converted, basically at that point in time, the families have to be right-sized. So you will have to move into an appropriate size unit when you return to the properties.
But if I qualify for a 4-bedroom or a 5-bedroom, I will be able to move back into something similar when it comes there back at Latimer. Great.
Yes, we will make sure we have appropriate size units to accommodate all the families. That's required under RAD.
Another question about coming back to the site. If I want to use my voucher for home ownership towards one of those home ownership units that are being built on the new site, will I be able to do that?
If you otherwise qualify for home ownership, then yes, you will be able to use a voucher for the home ownership units. But there are specific qualifications. As we continue to refine the program, we will share all of that with the tenants and tell you what you would need to do to be able to qualify. The homeownership program does require you to have good credit and to be able to qualify for a mortgage from a bank. So even though Section 8 assists with that homeownership purchase, you still have to be eligible for a mortgage from a local bank.
Ms. Herrera, we're getting a question about a unit that's got some issues. Got somebody who says that they are concerned about staying another 2 to 3 years in a unit that has bats and possibly mold and some other things. She's concerned about her children. What should she do in this instance? Because we're so concerned about making sure folks are safe and in units.
Right. If you have current problems, I can't stress enough how important it is that you contact your property manager. And some people, if they're in units that cannot be repaired right now, they will get what's called an early move. So that is something that you need to talk with your property manager about. And we will assess the unit and determine whether any repairs can be made at this time or whether we need to go ahead and move a family. So please communicate with your property manager specifically about any issues that you currently have in your unit.
And I know we've got the property manager for that site, Mina Scott, on the line. Ms. Scott, if you don't mind dropping your contact information in the chat for everybody again, just to make sure they have it, and maybe the MedCom number, because we do have an after hours number if you have maintenance concerns and it's outside of those normal business hours for us. But we do want to stress that's really important. If you're having issues, do communicate those with your property manager, and we want to get those addressed as best we can. Kind of pivoting a little bit here, Ms. Herrera, we've had some questions about green features at the properties. Will we have things like charging stations or retention ponds that are going to recycle water to do irrigation? You know, what kind of things
the design plans are not that far along yet, but those are the kinds of things we want to hear about that we'll share with the architects and engineers. They are currently just beginning the work on the design plans, and we will come back with a more specific design plan of exactly what the site will be laid out for. And then we'll want to hear those kinds of things from residents to determine, you know, what options we have available. Charging stations are becoming more common, and that is something that we certainly look at. The civil engineers will basically design the drainage and the retention and determine what exactly we do there. But all of the units themselves, the buildings, we're required today to build to green standards, and so they will be energy efficient buildings. They will have, you know, certain types of windows and lots of insulation and things that will certainly cause electric usage to be much less than what it currently is, because those are the building standards that we will have to utilize in order to be able to build the property under the financial requirements that we're going to be required from the private financing that we will secure.
Now, you're mentioning the energy and energy efficiency brought up a question. Will tenants at the new units be responsible for their utility bills, or will this be included as part of the rent?
No, tenants will be responsible for paying their electric bill. We anticipate that the units will all be electric, and each unit will have an individual electric meter, and the tenants will be responsible for that electricity. And the property will handle the water and the sewer. And so that's basically generally the way that all of the units are designed.
Got somebody wanting to know what other kind of amenities. Will there be any playgrounds, any green space, basketball courts, those kind of things on the new site?
Yes, that's a very good question. We are incorporating a lot of amenities into our new developments. These amenities include, there will be a community room. There'll be a computer lab. There'll be Wi-Fi available. Of course, every unit will have the ability to have cable and Wi-Fi services, but we will also have hotspots throughout the property for residents at no cost. Exterior amenities are still in the design phase. We will have playgrounds for children. As far as other amenities, We've done some things such as walking trails for exercise and walking. We've done pickleball courts. We've done a variety of different types of amenities. We've done water features. So there will be some amenities that will be built into the site. As the architect and engineers finish the site plan, then we'll have a better idea of the kind of space that we have and what kind of amenities we can put on the exterior. The units themselves will have phenomenal amenities. They will be very modern kitchens with stoves, refrigerators, dishwashers, built-in microwaves, and all the units will have in-unit washers and dryers. And so they will be what you see in today's modern multifamily housing.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Another question along those same lines, will the new community be gated?
That's a discussion that we're still underway right now. We are looking, and that's something we have to work with both the fire marshal as well as the local police department in order to get an authorized gated community. We are looking at it to be a gated community that would have limited access, and that's part of the design that we are looking into right now. And we'd love to hear from the residents about that. But we are leaning towards it being a gated community at this point in time.
Another question about some of the amenities that may be on site. Will there be covered parking at any of the units?
We do not anticipate that there would be covered parking or garages at this point in time, no. The cost for that when we're doing affordable housing becomes pretty cost prohibitive. And so it's really hard to build that in when we're trying to still do affordable housing.
I know we talked briefly about this in the meeting 2 weeks ago, but if I want to keep my children, if I have children, school-age children, and I want to keep them in Richland 1 and the schools that they are attending right now, during the relocation process, will we be able to take that into consideration? Will you be able to place me where I can be the least disruptive to my children in school?
I want to be as transparent and honest as possible. We will make an effort to do that, but there really is no way we can assure that. There isn't always housing that's appropriate for what families need within the same school district. So, for the temporary relocation period, which could be 12 to 18 months, we may not be able to accommodate that. We will work with the school district to see if we can make arrangements for kids to stay in those schools and be transported in some way. But we have not been able to, work through that totally yet. So again, we will make an effort, but I want to be real honest in saying I don't know that it's going to be possible to keep everybody in the same schools and still be able to accommodate the housing that's needed for the families.
Just as an aside, got some positive comments about the idea of gating the community and adding some security measures down there. That's been a concern
Right.
for that neighborhood in general. But people are excited about the idea that is a possibility.
Yeah, we want to hear more feedback about that, because certainly we want to be responsive to what your needs are. And we initially, our reaction is that it probably would be a good place to have a gated community with limited access.
Is there going to be a community room on the new site?
Yeah, there will be a community building, and that building will have a community room with like a serving type of kitchen where you could have that. So there will be a community room. And in that same building will be the management and the leasing office, and there'll be a computer lab available to residents as well in that center.
Oh, great. So there'll be staff on site, just like there has.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there will be management staff on site.
That's great. It really sounds like a very exciting project. And I know people are looking forward to the next couple of years and the changes coming down the pike. If we've got any more questions, by all means, drop those in the chat. We're going to give everybody a couple more minutes.
I see a question here where somebody says if they don't want to come back, can they get a voucher and move elsewhere? I want to clarify again, yes, that is absolutely an option that you have available to you. That's what we call voluntary permanent relocation. That means that you take a voucher and you choose to move wherever you want outside of the city of Columbia, outside of the state of South Carolina. If you want to go elsewhere, that will be an option that is available to you. We know many people have family in other locations or job opportunities or educational opportunities. And that is something that this will provide for you. If you choose to go somewhere else, you certainly have the option to do that. And everybody will qualify for a level of relocation assistance. All of your moving costs, all of those things will be part of what's provided as part of the RAD process.
What if I want to move somewhere else in the state? What if I want to take my voucher and go to Greenville County or Charleston County? Could I do that?
Absolutely. You'll be able to take your voucher. That's called portability. That's when you take your voucher and you port it or move it to another location. If you want to do that, then we just contact the housing authority where you want to go. And then basically you go there and that housing authority will give you one of their vouchers, and then they will assist you in whatever town you go to, whatever housing authority covers that town.
Does my payment standard change if I move to another location?
Yes, once you move to another location, that housing authority will give you a briefing, or they'll meet with you and go over all of the voucher requirements for their location. And they are different. The amount of money for the voucher is different depending on what city you live in or you take the voucher to. Ours are specific to the Richland County area, but when you go to another county, then the rent amounts are going to be different. Some cases they're higher, some cases they're lower. It just depends on what the criteria is for that county.
Good information. So we've got a question popping up in the chat about helping with moving. What is Columbia Housing going to do to help folks physically move?
Yeah. We have third-party moving companies that are under contract. And so you will have an option. If you're moving within the area, we will provide you with all of your packing materials and everything that you need, boxes and tape and everything. And so you'll be able to pack up, and then we'll have a moving company move you. If you're moving outside of Richland County, then there's a flat fee that you'll be entitled to receive, and we will just provide you with a payment, and you will handle your own move if it's outside the area. That flat fee is based on a schedule that's published by HUD. And so basically it's based on the number of rooms of furniture. So everybody's will be a little different depending on the size of your apartment. And then you will receive a check if you choose to move that way. Otherwise, we would cover the move for you. And if you come back, we will also handle the move for you to return as well.
We're going to get a question about time frame. If I remember correctly, you had mentioned that the earliest any of this might start, the very earliest any of it might start would be summer of 2022.
That's correct.
Just a year.
Right. So we anticipate, as you recall at our last meeting 2 weeks ago, I talked a little bit about the process. These meetings that we're having with residents are to begin the process. We are required by HUD to hold 2 meetings with the residents before we can submit our application. So after today's meeting, by the end of this month, within the next couple of weeks, we will submit our application to HUD. We anticipate that HUD will give us approval probably sometime in January or February. Once we get that preliminary approval, then we have to continue to finalize all of our plans, all of our financing plans, our construction plans. We've got to go out to the banks and the investors and get all of our money in place. And then once we get that approval, we receive a second approval from HUD once we submit all the final plans. Once we get that second approval is when we can start the relocation process with residents. So we anticipate that that process will start, I would say probably late summer of next year. We'd like to start in the summer so that we could get residents moved before the school year starts. But it's, again, this is, we're relying on HUD approvals, and we're just not always sure, how quickly HUD gets some of that done. Our experience is that it can take a little while. So we're going to try to do everything possible to be able to start the relocation process next summer so that we can be able to try to allow some residents to move before the school year starts so that children can get settled into schools.
Great. So just one last kind of question, so sort of giving everybody an idea of what next. When will the next time that the folks at Latimer Manor will hear from us about this conversion process?
It probably will be after the first of the year. Right now, after today's meeting, as I said, we will move forward to submit our application. Once HUD comes back and gives us our first approval, which is what's called the commitment, it basically says you're authorized to move forward with the RAD process. We will circle back with everybody and let you know then. And we also should have some more conceptual designs at that point. And so we would want to hold like a charrette or another meeting where we share with you more designs and get more feedback from all of you about some of the design plans.
Great. Well, it sounds like we've got some exciting, busy times coming up, Ms. Herrera. Thank you for all this great information. We'll let you wrap it up with some closing remarks and then let Ms. Bean.
Right. Well, again, I just wanted to thank everybody for joining us. As we said, all of this information will be available on the Housing Authority's website. I want to continue to stress that nobody should start the moving process. It's too early, and we don't want you to jeopardize your eligibility for anything. So remember to stay in good standing with your lease, continue to pay your rent on time and abide by all the lease rules so that when the time comes, you will be eligible to receive a voucher. And that's all I have. Thank you all again. I'll turn it back to Ms. Bean if she has any closing remarks. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all very much. Have a good evening, and we appreciate you sharing time with us this afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.